even though it's crypto and there's a lot of neat tech behind the scenes, we want to make it look as close to normal life as possible. If people want to adopt this, they don't want to learn anything else new. They don't want to do any different behaviors. It's the same thing with payments. We wanted to make it one tap, one scan, like none of these other, complicated steps. It's the same thing with Anvil, making it really, really simple for both sides of the equation.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Sanasi. You're watching CoinDesk. Joining me today is the president of the Acronym Foundation, Tyler Spalding. Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for talking to me, Jen.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk all about Consensus, your sponsorship and Consensus, and a really unique way that we are leveraging the technology that you're working on to get that sponsorship done. But first, I think we should lay a foundation. Talk to me about Acronym Foundation. What are you focusing on there?
It's really simple. It's just a foundation that we set up that sort of invests or supports Web3 projects, open source projects. The one that we have a bias towards anything related to payments. We have sort of some roots back in a Flexa ecosystem where we worked on payments, decentralized payments, sort of the movement of money. So there's definitely an emphasis there. But right now, we're really focused on something called Anvil, which is a collateral management protocol. Sounds very boring, and at its core it is, but we're hoping it'll be useful to a lot of folks and businesses and just bring a lot of simplicity to sort of DeFi and the use of all this.
Let's talk about Anvil now. You're leveraging the protocol to pay for your Consensus sponsorship. Talk to us about how this works.
Yeah, that's really neat as well. First, I learned in talking with some of the Consensus folks, I've been to every single Consensus that has existed so far, starting with the very first Consensus in 2015 in the New York Times building. So I've been around, I guess, for a while, kind of just seeing how things work, getting to know the team there on the sponsorship side and just as an attendee. And what we've done with Anvil, we say that it's a collateral management platform, but all you do is you put assets into a vault, and then you can write a letter of credit against that. And it's basically saying I will pay you a certain amount of money in the future, right? So it's almost like a buy now, pay later type service, but it's all using DeFi. It's all fully transparent. It's fully decentralized. No one controls your assets. You maintain all custody. And that's the simplest form of how the product works. And so we approached in talking with Consensus, they said, hey, we've got people that are looking to sign up for sponsorships, but they might not want to sell their crypto, or they also might not necessarily want to commit today. They're trying to figure out, what the market looks like or what timing looks like. Do they want to do this in 2 months or, 3 months? Then they're kind of deciding. And so we thought this was a perfect blend of you can use Anvil to basically reserve your spot today and then pay for it in 3 or 4 months. And so Consensus now has the sponsors right away. And from a user, you don't necessarily need to sell your crypto. You can wait. Again, it's kind of like a buy now, pay later sort of system.
So it's an IOU on a blockchain, if I were to simplify it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And it's fully collateralized too, which is what blockchains do really, really well, right? You can know the assets are there, the condition of the assets. You're not going to get sort of FTX'd, right? The assets are there. They're in a smart contract. You can see the condition. They can't be rehypothecated. And that's what DeFi does really well.
Well, that was my next question. Is there a smart contract there and there are a set of conditions that this payment will be made at X time, or if the price of X asset reaches a certain amount?
It's even easier than that. So yes, we don't even put any of the conditions in place because that's so hard to enforce on a blockchain and what an oracle you even see some of the situations now with Polymarket, right? And they're like, oh, did this president wear a suit? And they're like, whose definition is a suit? And when is this time? And was it noon in this time zone? And there's all this sort of arbitration that gets infinitely more complex. So we didn't want any of that baked into the protocol. So it's really just as simple as it's almost like this IOU that the recipient can just cash whenever they want with no restrictions whatsoever. So almost like a cashier's check. That example is getting a lot older these days. I'm very old to where I could still have used these back in the day. I'm finding a lot of new partners have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's sort of like a check that I can give you that you can do nothing, you could rip it up, or you could just cash it at the bank whenever you want. And that's really the enforcement. There's no other conditions. We allow the recipient to always cash it. And the off-chain sort of arbitration is between the buyer and the seller, right? And it's no different than if I just paid you up front anyway. So we felt that was the most natural. That's the most important thing, that how we build products is, even though it's crypto and there's a lot of neat tech behind the scenes, we want to make it look as close to normal life as possible. Because people want to adopt this. They don't want to learn anything else new. They don't want to do any different behaviors. It's the same thing with payments. We wanted to make it one tap, one scan, like none of these other, complicated steps. You're at a point of sale, right? It's the same thing with Anvil, making it really, really simple for both sides of the equation.
What's the best use case for this?
It's really just basically saying, like, I'm good for something. So we think the buy now, pay later is a big example, because we could now let anyone do that, right? So anyone kind of becomes a merchant, a retailer, consensus, right? Can now offer this product, and they're kind of in control of whether it's interest rates or payment plans or whatever it is. So we think that loan purchasing aspect could be the biggest. That's what we're seeing right now, and that there's huge demand around that. So that makes sense. But like anything we're doing, there's quite a few really interesting options. One that I'm really, really in love with is, especially living in New York City or a big city, a lot of younger people might not have the established credit through our long, lengthy systems. They might have crypto. And when you go and you try to rent an apartment, it's, oh, here's a security deposit. We need to verify this. And there's all these forms. And there's 20 pages of documents for us to prove that you're good for this monthly payment. Where if you could use something like Anvil, you could now say, hey, I am good for it. Here's my letter of credit for 1 year of whatever the payments are. And there's no forms to fill out. There's no credit checks. There's nothing else. It just says, oh, you're good for it. And in 10 seconds, I can verify you have the funds to be able to pay for something. So we're working with a couple of companies on that side of things. And I just think that could be so big. And there's a lot of other options like that, a lot of other financial products, because there could be time duration, letters of credits. It's like futures contracts and things like this. We'll see where it goes. We've built it extremely extensible, and everything is obviously open source, and it's very simple to where people could kind of take this in a lot of different directions. But at least right now, this payments kind of lending product we think is really big, and we've gotten a lot of traction on it so far. And yeah, so I'd say that's for starting. We'll see in another year what it looks like.
All right, Tyler, we're going to see you at Consensus. Before I let you go, though, you started your first payments company when you were 16 years old. The payments space is going through a pretty big evolution right now. What would you say is one of the frictions or sticking points that still exists before we get to the next iteration of payments?
I'd say there's really two pieces. I mean, one, there's just on the user side of making it just as easy and as clean as possible, and then having assets that a user wants to spend. That is so much more critical, I think people recognize, where, we have assets like Bitcoin or Ether. A lot of people are looking at those of store of value or not looking to spend those assets. So having something like USDC on a chain that makes sense, that's very quick, cost efficient, and having users get that stuff. So they need to be paid this, or they already have it in the wallets. I'd say that's number one. And then number two, which sort of you mentioned, I think has been hugely helpful, just clarity around whether it's banks or merchants or others, just to interact with this stuff without having all these other unnecessary risks, which has been prevalent throughout the world. And that's getting addressed. And I think that's probably the most important, is that once people have the freedom and understanding to use this stuff without some other repercussions or lack of clarity, I think that's number one. And then it can move pretty quickly.
Tyler, thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you at Consensus Hong Kong and Consensus Miami. We'll be seeing each other in two places that are much warmer than New York right now.
All right, great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.